Hey there, my friends. This is Andy coming to you from Yorba Linda, California for the Andy Falco Show. And, I just love Carrie Buck's campaign posts on Facebook because they give me so much information and things to look into, and just to prove to you that she's not transparent. She doesn't care about the finances of PYLUSD. She doesn't care about the kids. She doesn't care about education. Remember that she said that, thank God there's no education, only the whole child discussions. And this particular post that I'm going to show you in just a minute just tells you a lot about who Carrie Buck is and who her friends are. Sorry. But this one I titled Carrie Buck's Endorsement Joke. And who is Carol Downey? Well, I found out who Carol Downey was. And so let's first refer to the post. And this is her endorsement that she got from Carol Downey. I strongly support Carrie Buck for Placentia Yorba Linda District School Board. I had the opportunity to work with Carrie on the board and found her to be an excellent board member. I shouldn't laugh because I do the same thing all the time. And it says, she is committed to the children. Absolutely not. That is not true. And families, no. She voted against parents' rights in our district to offer the best educational opportunities. No. She only cares about the whole child. She says she's glad there's no education going to be going on in PYLUSD, at least as long as she has anything to do about it, and will work with other board members to implement that. No, it's just a lie. So Carol Downey. Who is Carol Downey? Well, I found out. Carol Downey was on the school board with Carrie Buck in 2011. And why is that important? Well, 2011, if you will remember, is when they decided that they were going to borrow some money, and they used this high ratio capital appreciation bond, a CAB, where they borrowed $40 million with a $304 million repayment. Now, earlier on a Instagram Live, I said that there was a $21 million loan with a $281 million payback. Well, I did some more digging because that figure did sound wrong when I was saying it, and I just remembered just so many people send me so much information. There was some information about that figure, and then there were some other figures. And so I began to look for myself and found on the PYLUSD website from some time ago that they actually posted about this CAB and how much actually was there. And it turns out that it's $40 million with a $340 million repayment. And here is one of the graphs they put in that post on the PYLUSD website, and you see there in the red underline where it says $40 million, $3,918 with a $304,242 and $770 million payback. And yeah, so that's the figure. I ran it through Grok and some other things, and that is the amount of money that was borrowed for these vanity projects that they had dreamed of around the school district, like a theater at El Dorado High School, as if they needed this fantastic theater that they put there. Now it's everything I hear about it, it's not that fantastic. But regardless, they needed this theater apparently. So they needed to really, tie the community to this theater through this $304 million payback for some reason. I think there was a pool built over at Yorba Linda High School and some other stuff. And so all these things, when they talk about Dr. Chernus's vanity projects, as I like to say, is that his projects were under the funds that allowed him to create things like USI. It was a new project, and they were using not new project funding to do that. And it's a very long story, but everybody that's part of these nitwits of the teachers union, want to constantly say that those were vanity projects. Well, this apparently was a huge vanity project because none of these things were necessary at the time, considering the climate, the financial climate of the community and of the nation at the time, that they chose that they really had to get these things done. So let's go with these cabs and really make this work. Well, there were a number of people on the school board at the time, and so here are the people that were there, and all 5 voted yes. Now, this is really important as I go on to some more information about what was happening at the time. But this Eric Paget, which is it's an interesting relationship between him and Carrie. Again, I'm not sharing anything that I know beyond that. However, there's just this relationship that I'm learning about. And then you got Judy Carmona. Did I miss Carrie Buck? Carrie Buck obviously was there. Judy Carmona, Carol Downey, the same Carol Downey, who is endorsing her for school board, and then Karen Freeman, another person that we are so happy that we got voted out of the school board there some years ago. Thank goodness, because she was horrific. But what is really important for you to know is that they all voted yes on this CAB for this loan of an enormous amount of money having to be paid back by us. Now, of course, they didn't care. At the time in 2011, I'm sure that they're thinking, hey, what do we care? We're not going to be around. We'll probably be dead by the time that this loan has to be paid back. So we don't care. We just want these things built. And no matter what happens to the community, no matter what happens to the district in the future when we're long gone and dead, it's going to be up to them to pay it back. And so we don't care. But what they did was really nefarious and just a total disregard for what the community should have known at the time. And what they did is that the amounts that they were borrowing and the amount of the payback were not in the resolution that they voted on that particular night at the school board meeting. It was just that they were going to get this loan and they were going to build these things. It was purposefully left off. So nobody knew what the amounts of money were that they were looking at in regards to borrowing and the payback. And here's what the Orange County Register wrote about it at the time, just to show you that I'm not making any of this up. And so we go to this article, and what were they possibly hiding or trying to hide? The Orange County Register article that first highlighted the blank amount framed it as part of a broader lack of transparency. Remember, Carrie Buck likes to say that she's very transparent. She's not. She never has been and never will be. Critics argued there was minimal public discussion, of course, of the very high repayment ratios, nearly 13-1, and multi-decade deferral of payments, leaving the CAB amount blank, made it harder for the public, of course, and potentially even some board members. So I'm guessing maybe there were a few board members that had no idea of what was going on, yet they voted yes to fully understand the scale of the most expensive portion of the deal right when the vote occurred. The final costly structure was effectively locked in afterward without further public board vote on the precise CAB figure. So they left it blank for the vote. And then when they figured out how much it was going to cost and what the end payback was going to be, they just decided, we'll just slip it in there and don't tell anybody. This is Carrie Buck. And this is who her friend is, Carol Downey, who is endorsing her. This is who they are. And this is who Carrie Buck has always been. By the way, you have to know that. Because any normal person, any person with just rational thought, don't even have to have necessarily critical thinking. But if, let's just say you were going to buy a car and it cost you $50,000, and I'm going to give you the equivalency of this particular CAB in regards to buying a car of $50,000. Let's just say that your spouse, your husband and your wife came to you and says, well, I got this great car. It's $50,000, but I got a great loan. And they ask you, well, how much is the payback? How much is it going to cost us to pay this back if you got a loan? And it's not important. You don't need to know. And let's just show you here. The equivalent for a $50,000 car loan under this CAB, this 13% payback, is, let's look at this figure. So at the 13-1 figure often cited for the loan for the CAB, the total payback would be about $650,000. Okay, let me just ask you. Again, this is not their money. That's why they don't care. It's your money. But since it's not their money, they could care less. Let's just borrow this money, and who cares about how much it costs? But if you're running a business, if you just as simply, again, a household, and one of you comes to the other and says, I want to take out a $50,000 loan, and then you share with them, well, the payback for that is $650,000, you're going to say no. Everybody would say no. Now, they had plenty of options at that time in 2011 not to do this cab. They could have waited. They could have waited for the climate to change or the circumstances to get better. And then they had other options for loans that they could have looked at, but they didn't want to do that. Now, I don't necessarily know at the time why they didn't do that. I don't know if there were some kickbacks that they were getting. You don't know if there was, some friends that they were trying to please, or maybe that some of their friends were going to get some. Who knows? But why would you agree to such a thing? Nobody in their right mind would agree to something like that. A 13-to-1 payback on a loan. Nobody, ever. It's just not possible that you would do that. So, sorry, made that bounce there. So, just one last thing before I end this, because I just want to keep this pretty short, is that guess who is friends with Chris Lowe and talked him into running for trustee? Just think about the names that I just shared with you, Carrie Buck and this Carol Downey. Well, it turns out that Carol Downey is friends with this Chris Lowe that nobody seems to know about and doesn't know why he's running for school board, because it really doesn't. I mean, he has kids in the school district, we think. I think he does. And he possibly lives in the district. But other than that, he's not been around any of the school board meetings as far as I know. I've never seen him, but he could have been to one or two. He doesn't know why Cal State Fullerton is no longer sending their student teachers to our school district. He doesn't know that reason, or he does. And then if he were to unfortunately get elected, which I don't think is going to happen, is that he would then push through to get them back, just so that we could have CRT and DEI and SEL and all the other nonsense back into our schools. But Carol Downey talked him into running for school board, meaning that he's good friends with Carol Downey, because Carol Downey was also on the city council in the city of Placentia, and he took her place when he got elected. So they're friends. And let's just see, what's the correlation? What do they have in common, this Carol Downey, Carrie Buck, and Chris Lowe have in common? Well, Chris Lowe, as the mayor, he was mayor during this very challenging time, and it just fits, right? It fits into this loan fiasco, is that there were major losses in debt, tens of millions of dollars in the mid-2000s from the failed on-track railroad corridor redevelopment project. This led to budget cuts, hiring freezes, near financial ruin descriptions, and criminal conflict of interest charges against some city officials. Public Works Director Christopher Becker and former city administrator Robert D'Amato. Chris Lowe was still on the city council during the peak of these issues around 2005, 2006. But the city did not file for bankruptcy for whatever reason. They probably should have. So let's look more into this. So the key timeline on the on-track issues that destroyed the city of Placentia's financial situation at that time, when Chris was mayor. On-track was created in April 2000, and the problematic contracts, including those involving Public Works Director Christopher Becker, were awarded around the time during Lowe's mayor tenure. Financial problems, debt funding shortfalls, and controversy built over subsequent years. Heightened scrutiny, investigations, and media coverage intensified around 2004-2005. A grand jury testimony, including by then he had went from mayor to back to city council member. And then Mayor Scott Brady occurred in 2006. Becker and former city administrator were indicted on conflict of interest charges in March of 2006. And the project was effectively dissolved around 2006. And Chris Lowe resigned as city council member at the same time. So I'm gonna have to look more into this and find out why he resigned. Was it part of a deal, perhaps? Was there some testimony that he gave to the grand jury during that period of time to shield him from any indictment or prosecution? I don't know that. But it's sure, I've been involved in law enforcement for several decades now, and this all seems a little bit fishy, that he was the mayor during the time that these things were created. He brought him in. He decided that he was going to push forward this on-track contract that led to the indictment and arrest of two of the people that work for him as mayor, and everything began to fall apart, and people go to jail, and then somehow he goes away scot-free. Now, I did hear some other things, but I just can't share them right now because I don't know if they're true. But there's some other shenanigans going on with Chris Lowe. So I just thought I'd bring that to you. So Carrie Buck, Carol Downey, Chris Lowe are all connected. Chris Lowe is a plant by the teachers union people. He's just been put into the election to cause votes to be taken away from Todd Frazier. This is all true and factual based on everything that I'm reading. I wasn't in any rooms of any discussions, but there's no other reason why Chris Lowe for him to be in the election. Todd Frazier has been doing a great job for the years that he's been on the school board. Everybody loves him. He's very solid in his decision-making and discussions, and just a really good school board member. Again, there's no reason for somebody who's claiming to be a Republican or a conservative or what have you on the ticket like that. This just doesn't make any sense. The only thing that does make sense is that he was encouraged by Carol Downey and Carrie Buck and the others to cause problems in the election for Todd Frazier, which they did the last time too. And so that's it. So thank you, Carrie Buck, for your posts. Keep them coming because they're just gold for helping me tell people who exactly you are and what you've done to this district over the last several years. All right, my friends, that's it. Talk to you later.